Good evening. I'm Sam Brock in for Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. So President-elect Trump's cabinet is shaping up, and quickly. Here's the latest on what we know about those picks. Just within the last hour, Trump has selected longtime aide Karoline Leavitt as his White House press secretary. She had been the national press secretary for his campaign. Trump also just now saying that Stephen Chung, his chief campaign spokesman, will now serve as his White House communications director. And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is Trump's choice for Interior Secretary. Burgum briefly challenging Trump for the Republican nomination, but then dropping out early in the race and then quickly backing Trump. Today's selections cap a flurry of announcements by the president-elect, some of which might have been predicted, like Susie Wiles for White House Chief of Staff. Others, like Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General or RFK Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary, have spawned shock and disbelief in some corners of Washington. Let's take a listen now to a snapshot of what Trump's nominees have said in the past about the very departments they're now nominated to lead. Take a listen.
You got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke, it's got to go.
We either get this government back on our side, or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them, if they do not come to heal.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
All right, there are still roughly a dozen or so cabinet or cabinet-level positions that are outstanding, like those who will lead the Departments of Treasury, Labor, and Education. So more to come. NBC's Dasha Burns is here with me now to break this all down. Dasha, let's start with the very latest news. Who is Karoline Leavitt and Stephen Chung?
All right. Karoline Leavitt, not a surprise to be chosen as a press secretary. She's been with him by his side throughout this campaign. She's been his bulldog with the press, both behind the scenes and on the airwaves. Same with Stephen Chung. He's been with him forever. He's been with him since 2016. Before that, he was the spokesman for UFC, which also Trump has a great relationship with. And Stephen Chung is unabashed, unfiltered when it comes to defending the president-elect.
So not surprising they would be selections there. It certainly fits on brand. I would ask about the nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General and some new reporting that we now have regarding this House ethics probe that Speaker Johnson had said he does not want to see the light of day. First, what's the new information?
So there's a lot going on there, and there's sort of a drip of developments here. So an attorney, Joel Lepper, just told NBC News that his client testified to the House Ethics Committee that she witnessed Representative Gaetz having sex with a minor at a house party in Orlando in 2017. That attorney is arguing passionately that this report should be released to the public.
This is the attorney for the woman who testified before the House Ethics Committee describing what their client said. And so that's information that right now would not potentially be made public. Would the senators who are voting on Gaetz's nomination still be able to access that information?
So that is a critical question. There are senators, Democrat and Republican, that have demanded that that report be at least released to senators. But Speaker Mike Johnson basically said, we're sticking with tradition here. We're going to keep that report private. Take a listen.
I believe it is very important to maintain the House's tradition of not issuing ethics reports on people who are no longer members of Congress. I think it would open a Pandora's box. I think it's a very important rule that should be maintained. If it's been broken once or twice, it should not have been, because that would be a Pandora's box. I think it's a very important tradition to maintain.
Did you talk to Trump about this?
But look, as more information comes out, like we know that what this attorney said is presumably in that ethics report. That testimony happened. It's been recorded. Yeah. As more information comes out, there will likely be mounting pressure. So we'll have to watch and see where this goes.
You think the pressure could certainly dial up? I'm curious, if Gaetz had not resigned from Congress within the last couple of days, technically this report would be able to be released?
That's how the rules work. Once you're no longer a congressman, that committee has to stop doing its investigative work. That report just kind of goes into a file somewhere. So if he were still there, presumably it could and maybe would have been released. interesting timing.
Right. Can I ask also, so Pete Hegseth, there's been a lot of new information regarding some of his history. What we're learning is denials about sexual assault claims. Can you talk about that? And also, how much equity do both the Democrats in the House and certainly some Republicans who have said, look, I want to examine some of these nominations a little more closely, especially with respect to Gates. How much equity do they have to play with? Do they have to pick their battles with one specific nomination, or do you think it could be more thorough for a number of these candidates?
It's a really good question, and I think it's one that a lot of Republican members of Congress are asking themselves right now, because so many of these picks, whether it's Hegseth, who, yes, is denying sexual assault allegations, and RFK, I mean, a number of these picks. The list goes on. Could be a huge challenge and a real test of loyalty of these senators. Do they toe the line with Trump, or if it weren't Trump, these picks wouldn't go through. But Trump just does have such a command of the party that people are going to have to really be wrestling with that.
Do you get the impression that any one of the nominations is going to be more of an uphill climb than the others?
Gates. I mean, we've already heard, look, no one has come out and publicly said they will not vote to confirm him. That just hasn't happened. But a number have either demurred on this or had no comment or said they are skeptical of him being able to get through. And I'm talking Republicans here. Let
me assume that you are going to have a very busy next couple of weeks and months ahead. Thank you for spending a few months.
Breakneck pace with these transition decisions.
Of all the uncertainty, that's a guarantee. Dasha Burns, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight tonight. Well, also staying in Washington right now, it's been a week of UAP revelations. Of course, that's short for unidentified anomalous phenomena, right? Or what we used to call UFOs. Now, on Wednesday, we heard some pretty eye-opening testimony on Capitol Hill from former government officials like this.
Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe.
The now declassified video showed an unidentified object exhibiting flight and structural characteristics unlike anything in our arsenal.
Another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait.
Okay, there's the testimony. Less than 24 hours later, the DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, released its annual findings. The conclusion, quote, AARO has discovered no evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology, end quote. We did get, though, some pretty thought-provoking data from the Pentagon. In the last year and a half, there have been more than 750 reports of UAP sightings. Now, they're not all created equally. Most have been explained as birds or balloons or drones or some even Starlink satellites. But the report does say there are a small number of cases that remain a mystery. That includes a potential flight safety scare off the eastern seaboard. The report says that a commercial aircrew had a close encounter with a mysterious cylindrical object while flying over the Atlantic Ocean near New York. This is one of about 21 cases the Pentagon says needs further analysis. For that analysis now, Morgan Chesky joining us live from Los Angeles. Morgan, thank you so much for being here, my friend. What else does this report say about the encounter near New York and about the other unexplained sightings? Are there even videos of them?
Yeah, Sam, the numbers are interesting here. Of those 750 reports that you mentioned, that encounter near New York was just the only one of the UFP sightings that was believed to have been a potential flight risk to the crew on board that airplane. Glad I was not on board that. Fortunately, everyone okay in that instance. As for those 21 others or so you mentioned, that is what officials can hopefully scrutinize going forward. But keep in mind, there are still upwards of about 300 that they just don't know what exactly they were. They can't attribute it to a drone or to a plane or to a bird, as the others could be attributed to. So that certainly can get anyone's imagination going. We do know, Sam, that some video should be released in the near future of some of these other phenomena, sightings, but we don't know explicitly if more video of that New York encounter will be released. But that is the closest call that we have currently on record here. Sam?
Sure. So not a lot of visual evidence, but a lot of numbers there in terms of reports, Morgan. When examining the map of these sightings, whether they're explained or unexplained, most of them have occurred over U.S. military sites in areas such as the Middle East and East Asia and near nuclear facilities in the United States. How concerned are officials about that?
Well, they're certainly concerned, and that's why the word is out that should any of these sightings be reported to local agencies, that should be immediately relayed to officials so they can alert officials inside the Pentagon to make sure those areas are secure. We do know that, at least as it stands right now, there was a wide acknowledgement that there doesn't believe to be any other source out there in space, Sam. But to your point, as far as a potential security threat, officials did acknowledge that, other governments around the planet, may have unknown UAPs of their own that we don't know about. And that is why they've designated this office inside the Pentagon to take this very seriously. I think for a long time growing up, UFOs were kind of tossed around as, something that is fun to discuss, but not necessarily something that's national security. That tone has very much shifted here in the last few years or so, particularly in a high-stakes global security environment when all eyes are watching each other here. Sam?
It's such a good point that the culture around it, but also the government response has changed so drastically in recent years. And Morgan, lastly, I would just ask, some of the testimony that we heard earlier this week in Congress claimed that UAP technology is actually already being used by the U.S. military and foreign adversaries. Did the Pentagon mention anything about its own UAP type of technology?
Not officially, Sam, only to say that they are keeping their best eyes on what other foreign governments may be doing here. But again, this is something that is still being, kept under cover as far as, what is officially available in terms of, airborne phenomena we're not totally aware of, looking up at the sky. So as far as any, magic headlines that come out of this, still waiting to see that. But they do acknowledge, as you mentioned, those 21 other incidents that they plan on taking a closer look at.
Morgan, you might say they're keeping us in the dark a little bit on this. Thank you so much for that reporting. I really appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. Now to those dangerous fires here in the Northeast. Tens of millions of people still right now under a red flag alert heading into the weekend. Abnormally dry conditions are making things even worse. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has more on the fight against the flames.
Smoke hovering over New York and New Jersey as firefighters make headway on the Jennings Creek fire. But officials cautioning the wildfire risk for more than 40 million remains. Forecasted 30-mile-an-hour winds could spark new flames this weekend, with crews from across the country now joining the fight. It's welcomed help amid an unrelenting fire season.
Of the roughly 1,300 wildfires in New Jersey this year, nearly half of them have broken out in just the last 6 weeks, including this one now encroaching on homes just 50 yards from here.
All while crews are still battling some fires from months before.
Have you ever seen a fire burn this long?
I have not, no.
We followed fire warden Ben Brick into the Wharton State Forest to monitor a fire that has been burning since July, thriving in the parched roots and debris underground.
But we never got the rainstorms. We never got the tropical moisture this year that we normally rely on for the summer months. So, we have this on our hands now, amongst other incidents.
Those dry conditions prompting drought warnings and watches across the Northeast, where officials are urging residents to conserve water. Jim McGill's family relies on well water in Hopewell Junction, New York, and now rotates shower days.
One of us was in the shower and the water stopped because the well had run dry.
Griffin Pump Service says they're not alone.
I haven't seen this many existing wells go dry and not come back in a very, very long time.
Rivers and reservoirs are drying up too, limiting where the firefighters' helicopters can pull water from to douse flames in hard-to-reach places.
We're stretching our resources to the limit with all the fires that we've had, not one at a time, but they all seem to be following each other.
Adding to the risk is that the forecast simply shows no rain in the coming days, which means progress on containing the fires around here could quickly be reversed.
Yeah, that's the risk. Emily, thank you so much for that report. As we head into the weekend, of course, all eyes are going to be on those fires. NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns joining us now to tell us more about when things could start to really let up here and if there's any good news in the forecast. Good evening, Bill.
Sam, we made it through today without any, new fires that were rapidly spreading. The winds didn't really kick up as much as we had feared, and they're not that high right now either, so that's good. But things are expected to be different tomorrow. We still have very, very low levels of humidity. I mean, we're talking even at this time of night in the 20% range. During the day today, it was desert-like in areas of southern New England, like 10 to 15%. It's pretty unheard of. And tomorrow we expect the same. That's why red flag warnings are up from Vermont to New Hampshire all the way down to southern portions of New Jersey. This includes 41 million people. So for the fires that are out there, there's a chance that they could spark up and rapidly spread, and any new fires that form, obviously we have to be concerned with that. And this is how high the winds are expected to gust. So in the big cities, anywhere around 20 to about 30-mile-per-hour gusts. Higher elevations could get a little higher than that. And so that's the fear. By the time we get to Sunday, the wind should come down a little bit. So it looks like Saturday is going to be the biggest risk here for that fire risk. And it's pretty dry throughout the rest of the country, too. No real huge storms to talk about this weekend, and that also means no chance for rain heading into areas of the Northeast. By Sunday, still sunny, still dry, just not quite as windy for the areas that are in the drought. But there is one piece of good news. We finally have a chance for some rain in the 7-day forecast. It's going to take a while to get here. This looks like a Wednesday, Thursday rain in the Northeast, but this would be welcome. This would be a soaking rain and really eliminate a lot of the fire risk. Not the drought, but at least the fire risk would drop considerably. So we'll have to monitor this as we go into next week. And then, of course, the other topic out there going on is what's happening in Honduras. This is never going to be Florida's problem. It's all the problem right now in Honduras. Up to 22 inches of rain has already fallen. The storm has stalled as a weak tropical storm right along the coast. It will eventually, over the weekend, dissipate over the Yucatan. But we are potentially going to be watching an additional 10 inches of rainfall here in Honduras. So they've already had life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides. Another 10 inches over the upcoming weekend. This is a recipe for a disaster as we head through Saturday and Sunday for our friends in Honduras, Sam.
Well, a close call in Hawaii has the Federal Aviation Administration investigating how an American Airlines flight narrowly missed flying into the side of a mountain. Take a listen.
American 298, turn right and expedite your climb through terrain and then turn right heading 120.
Expedite your climb. Well, in a statement, the FAA says the controller's actions ensured the aircraft remained safely above nearby terrain. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra. Marissa, we know it was close. How close is close, and what is American Airlines saying?
Hey, Sam, good to be with you. So perhaps not as close once you take a second look at what the airline and the FAA are saying. So just to kind of recap, as you just did and as you just mentioned, so Honolulu, this is a mountainous area if you've ever been. And so essentially the plane was late to make a turn. So air traffic control told the crew on board to take an expedited climb, essentially fly up very quickly out of an abundance of caution. And I want to take you to the statements we have first from American Airlines, because they note that they were complying with instructions, but most noticeably, quote, they say there was no enhanced ground proximity warning system alert as there were no issues with terrain clearance based on the trajectory of the aircraft. So in layman's words, in layman's terms, Sam, essentially what they're saying is the plane system did not detect that they were on any type of collision course with that mountainous terrain, that all of this was out of an abundance of caution, Sam.
And we are appreciative of the fact that you can decode some of the aviation language there. You know, I would also add, there was another situation this week, right, on a Miami-bound flight from Stockholm. What happened there?
Well, it seems you can't escape Miami, Sam. The Miami news always seems to find you. But yes, this plane was supposed to be headed to Miami. It was over Greenland, West Greenland, and that is important to what happens next. So essentially, you're going to see it hit some severe turbulence, and they had to kind of course correct, if you will. But I want to show you just how intense that turbulence was first.
Sam?
So nothing short of terrifying to not just watch, but hear that, of course, especially with the slow-mo there. But you can see, of course, things being knocked around, people being knocked around. It appears from what we've heard that one engine did lose power, and so they did what's called a controlled descent. And they descended 8,000 feet. This was, the pilots did a controlled descent. They were able to restart the engine, but of course they needed to then take a look at what happened, make sure that the plane is okay to continue flying. So, Sam, we mentioned that this plane was flying over Greenland. Not to be confused with Iceland. Greenland is one of the least densely populated regions in the entire world. So they needed to go to a place where they have the technicians and the hangars available. So they turned back around and they were able to actually land in Copenhagen. And so I will say, obviously very scary to listen and to watch that video, but there were no injuries reported, Sam.
Yeah, turbulence is one thing. Losing an engine midair, certainly an entirely different scenario. Marissa, thank you so much for that breakdown. We really appreciate it. And welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines that we're watching tonight. The medical examiner took the stand today in the trial of Daniel Penny. That's the man accused of strangling Jordan Neely to death on the subway in New York. Now, the Emmy refuted the claim from Penny's defense that the chokehold wasn't strong enough to kill Neely. The trial is expected to continue all the way up until Thanksgiving. General Motors laying off 1,000 employees today with the holidays right around the corner. The automaker says that they're trying to cut costs and realign their priorities, and it comes as GM is losing business in China and also slowing down their plans for electric vehicles, or EVs. Measles cases around the globe rose by 20% last year. That information, according to both the CDC and the World Health Organization, they estimate the numbers increased to more than 10 million cases globally and say it was driven largely by children who missed their vaccine doses. Two celestial events are featuring our night sky this weekend. The last supermoon of the year is happening. It's also called the beaver moon because beavers get into their shelters, fun fact, for the winter right around this time. We also have the Leonid meteor showers, and they're going to be at their peak on Saturday night. And it's official. Conan O'Brien is going to be your next host of the Oscars. The Emmy-winning comedian and former late-night host is going to be taking over from Jimmy Kimmel, who served as the MC for the last two ceremonies. It's actually going to be O'Brien's first time hosting the Oscars. Now to Georgia, where the trial of the man accused of killing Laken Riley started today as a bench trial, which means the accused here, Jose Antonio Ibarra, has waived his right to a jury. Ibarra has been indicted on charges which include felony murder, malice murder, kidnapping with bodily injury, and aggravated assault with the intent to rape, and peeping Tom. Riley, a nursing student, you recall, was found dead back in February, in a forested area on the University of Georgia's campus in Athens. Riley's death and Ibarra's arrest soon became the target of a lot of political rhetoric after it was revealed that Ibarra is a Venezuelan national who entered the U.S. illegally in 2022. NBC's Priya Sridhar has more.
I'm here in Athens, outside of the courtroom where the highly anticipated murder trial of 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley was underway today. We heard the opening statements both from the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution saying they have digital forensic and video evidence proving that 26-year-old undocumented Venezuelan migrant Jose Ibarra is the person who conducted this brutal murder back in February. They say that they were able to retrieve DNA evidence under Laken Riley's fingernails that tie this crime to Jose Ibarra. They also say they found a fingerprint on Laken Riley's cell phone from when she was trying to dial 911 the morning of the murder. And they say they have also been able to conclusively identify that that fingerprint belonged to Jose Ibarra. Now, we heard from several witnesses today, including all three of Laken Riley's roommates, a crime scene specialist, and a police officer who showed the body camera video he was wearing the day that he discovered Laken Riley's body. 30 of Laken Riley's family members were inside of the courtroom. As you can imagine, when a lot of that graphic evidence was being presented to the courtroom, they were incredibly emotional, several of them having to step outside of the courtroom. For its part, the defense says that all of this evidence is circumstantial. None of it can prove that Jose Ibarra sexually assaulted Laken Riley. And they say despite the fact that the prosecution is saying that his cell phone pinged towers near where Laken Riley's body was found around the time that the prosecution says the murder was committed, that they can't prove that it was Jose Ibarra himself who was with that phone. He has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. And earlier this week, he waived his right to a jury trial, which means this is being conducted as a bench trial. So the fate of Jose Ibarra and any potential sentencing will be in the hands of the judge. Priya Sridhar, NBC News.
All right, Priya, thank you so much. Texas's highest court making a key ruling today involving an inmate at the center of a controversial shaken baby case. Robert Roberson was supposed to be executed back in October. But at the last minute, state lawmakers issued a subpoena for his testimony because they believe that Roberson deserves a new trial. The Texas Supreme Court paused his execution so they could consider whether that kind of move would even be allowed. Their decision, well, the Texas High Court found that lawmakers do not have the power to override the execution, but the justices did signal Roberson could still testify before a House panel. Gadi Venegas has more details.
After weeks of litigation, a big decision by the Texas Supreme Court indicating that Texas state legislators cannot issue a subpoena that halts an execution. We know that back on October 17th, Robert Roberson was scheduled to be executed, and the legislators issued a subpoena that halted that execution. So we now know with the decision taken by the Texas Supreme Court that a subpoena cannot halt an execution. With all of that said, moving forward, we will have to wait for a new date to be set by a judge, an execution date, but we don't expect that to happen before the end of the year. This is going to give time to Robertson's attorneys and Texas legislators to have him testify. Now, originally when they discussed issuing this subpoena and have him go to Austin, to the state capitol, to testify, they were also looking into the technicalities of having someone on death row visit the state's capital, which can be complicated because of the protocols. So they had discussed the options of having this take place virtually. Robertson's attorney said they didn't want it to be virtual because they felt like an in-person testimony would be much more beneficial to him. They also noted that his autism could get in the way. So we'll have to wait and see if the testimony happens, how this would take place. We also have a statement from his attorneys after the Texas Supreme Court decision, which says the ancillary benefit to Mr. Roberson of staying his execution hopefully gives time for those with power to address wrongs, to see what is apparent to anyone who gives the medical evidence fair considerations. His daughter Nikki's death was a tragedy and not a crime. Robert is innocent. And of course, all of this done by his attorneys and the testimony that's been requested by Texas state legislators with the goal to have the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals look at this case and order. The goal for them would be to have that court order a new trial. But of course, all of this will depend on how much time they have waiting still for a new execution date to be set by a judge. What we know now from today's decision is that the subpoena will not be able to halt an execution once a new date is set. Sam?
Gadi Venegas, thank you. Over now to Los Angeles, where the county's new district attorney is speaking out about the Menendez brothers and their ongoing fight for freedom. Nathan Hochman is not as quick to support resentencing as his predecessor, LA's current DA, George Gascon. And as DA-elect Hochman tells NBC's Liz Kreutz, public sentiment won't influence his decision.
None of these people have actually done the hard work to put themselves in a position to thoroughly understand all the facts involved in a resentencing. I have not done the thorough review, and I'm not going to base my review, and though I haven't seen it, on some Netflix documentary or limited series, as many people have.
All right, joining us now is NBC's Liz Kreutz. Liz, good evening. Great to be with you. What else did the incoming DA tell you, and what does it mean for the Menendez brothers and the next steps in their resentencing case?
Yeah, hey, Sam. Well, the new DA takes office on December 2nd, which is 9 days before the scheduled resentencing hearing. He could delay that. He says that when he takes office, he's going to begin reviewing all the evidence, literally reading both transcripts from the two trials, talking to people on both sides. So that will be what he does before he ultimately makes his recommendation. It was interesting talking to him here because he did say that he's not going to give any sort of insight into what he's thinking until he reviews all the evidence. But I did ask him, I said, you know, do you think that there's been a cultural shift in how people view sexual abuse of young men, which is something I asked the current outgoing DA. The outgoing DA, when I asked him that, told me, yes, I do. The incoming DA said it's irrelevant. It makes no bearing on my decision. I'm going to be looking at the facts in this case. So it just gives you a little sense of where he might be thinking here. But again, we won't know his recommendation until some point after he takes office, Sam.
Which, by the way, is a pretty critical sort of lens through which to view this decision in the first place. So it's good that you point that out. So NBC also has obtained a resentencing motion that was filed on November 7th. What does that say?
So this motion is filed by the outgoing district attorney who is supporting the brothers and their quest to have a new sentence. And in it, we're hearing from Eric and Lyle. They've written letters talking about how they've changed and how prison has changed them for the better. And we're also hearing, interestingly, from correctional officers who have spent time with Eric and Lyle, those who say that they believe they are rehabilitated men who have been fantastic model prisoners, helping other inmates, helping the community grow within the prison. In fact, I'll read you one of them from one of the correctional officers about Lyle. Says, in my extensive experience, it is exceedingly rare to encounter an individual who, despite facing a life sentence without the possibility of parole, has dedicated himself to personal growth, the betterment of his fellow inmates, and the overall stability of the prison environment. Lyle Menendez is such an individual. So really, the attorneys for Eric and Lyle and the outgoing DA trying to paint this picture that these are good rehabilitated men. Those who believe they should stay in prison, though, say that might be true, but that doesn't justify the fact that they killed both their mother and their father. Sam.
All right, we'll find out what the weight of those testimonials will actually be. Liz Kreutz from Los Angeles tonight. Thank you so much. All right, much more to get to now. Protests in Spain coming up over the government's handling of those deadly floods a few weeks ago. We'll have more on what they are demanding. But first, something you got to see to believe. A baby goat was stuck on a cliff for 4 days until a social media post caught the eye of two hikers. So they climbed the steep terrain for the goat, used an apple and a drone to distract the animal, then bear hugged the little guy all the way down, as you see the man just climbing there to reach the goat. They named him Bala, and he is now safe at the Aloha Animal Sanctuary. We like stories with happy endings, especially when they involve animals. We will be right back. Welcome back. Time now to take a quick look around the world, starting with this. A thick fog has blanketed Pakistan for weeks, leaving nearly 2 million people sick as a result. Some areas that you can barely see are under lockdown as air quality readings hit over 600. For context, that is double the hazardous threshold. Experts blame vehicles, industrial activity, and crop burning, but rain and wind in the coming days hopefully could bring some relief. Well, in New Zealand's parliament, Maori lawmakers broke into a traditional dance called a haka to protest a bill they say could hurt indigenous rights. So that is the haka, traditionally used to challenge opponents, mirrored nationwide protests that were going on simultaneously as thousands marched to the Capitol. The bill is not expected to pass beyond its first reading. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered a mass production of suicide drones. Now, they're called that because they self-detonate. And this decision to beef up his military capabilities comes after U.S. confirmation that the North Koreans have fought alongside Russia in Ukraine. And if you had any plans to hike the Alps, take a closer look at what you might be standing on. Hikers in northern Italy uncovered fossils from over 280 million years ago. That is before the dinosaurs. Melting snow actually revealed the fossils, which researchers say also shows signs of past climate change. Well, speaking of that, we move now to the threat of new storms and flooding in Spain, which is posing a massive risk there yet again. You'll recall those intense floods just a few weeks ago killed more than 200 people and destroyed thousands of homes. Well, now protests are erupting over how the government is handling the storms, with new calls for top leaders to step aside. NBC's Steve Patterson has more.
Spain still picking up the pieces after deadly flooding, killing more than 200. More than a dozen others still missing in one of the country's worst natural disasters in modern history. Now Spaniards taking to the streets, demanding Valencia province President Carlos Mazón resign. Over what people there say is the mismanagement of the deadly floods that pummeled the eastern and southern coastal regions of Spain.
He is not apt for the job. He's an incompetent who has led us for our death count, a death roll of more than 210 people. He can only blame others for his incompetence.
Mazón apologizing today for the slow response. but not stepping aside and defending his government's actions under the extreme circumstances. This latest protest coming days after another storm hit Malaga down the Mediterranean coast, the area getting 3 inches of rainfall, or what would normally be nearly a month's worth of rain in just over an hour, submerging the streets in water, according to the country's meteorological agency.
Otra de las vistas que tenemos aquí del río Guadalmedina son las 4:30 de la tarde. Y esto ya está full.
The storm prompted the evacuation of just over 3,000 people, according to the region's government. They've since been permitted to return. The constant barrage leading to anger, frustration, calls for accountability, and revealing the simmering distrust for leaders amid a political divide in the country. After the first flood last month, residents of the worst affected city, Paiporta, attacked King Felipe's motorcade and pelted him with mud during his visit. Then protesters filled squares calling for new leadership.
Regional government didn't warn on time for the flooding, didn't respond on time, didn't get the help from the central government on time, and they just did everything that they could wrong.
This woman in Cataroja saying the death toll didn't have to be so high.
Hemos venido porque no nos saltó una alarma que se tuvo que haber dado y que hubiese podido salvar muchas vidas.
Communities now hoping for some refuge as extreme weather alerts have mostly been downgraded. But more rain and thunderstorms are expected as a battered region hopes to recover.
Relief needed there. NBC's Steve Patterson reporting. Thank you, Steve. In Iran, a woman was arrested after she posted a video online showing a man in a military uniform appearing to harass her. Now, human rights groups are asking where she is as Iran continues to crack down on women who are defying mandatory hijab laws. NBC's Danielle Hamamjian reports.
Tonight, growing concern over the whereabouts of Roshanak Molai. The 25-year-old Iranian woman had posted this video to social media on November 1st. It's believed to show her walking in Tehran with her head uncovered when she's accosted by a man in a military uniform. She fights back in this heated exchange, drawing in several bystanders. She captioned the video, a scene from being a woman in Iran. Human rights advocates say the following day she was summoned by Iran's cyber police and eventually arrested. Her account was taken down and no one is known to have heard from her since.
She has kind of disappeared. We don't have any information about her whereabouts, her condition, whether she was rearrested, whether she's in jail right now. So there's not much information out there, which is very troubling.
In a statement, Iranian police acknowledged the confrontation, saying both the man and the woman had, quote, been referred to judicial authorities, and that Molai is being prosecuted for not observing mandatory hijab laws. According to the human rights organization Henga, Molai has in the past publicly opposed mandatory hijab laws on social media. She was also arrested in 2022 for taking part in widespread protests over the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini while in police custody. Amini was detained in part for not correctly wearing a hijab. The UN says she was killed as a result of beatings, but Iran maintains she died of pre-existing medical conditions. Henga says Molai was only released a year later. Women in Iran have continued to protest the country's strict dress code. Earlier this month, another young woman protested the laws by stripping down to her underwear in public at a university in Tehran. A university spokesperson saying she was sent to a psychiatric hospital. Her current condition is unknown. Even with a new moderate president and a slightly more permissive morality police, the regime is still cracking down. A UN report released earlier this year flagged what it called a deteriorating human rights situation for women and girls across Iran. And just this week, the Iranian government announcing treatment clinics where women who refuse to wear the hijab may be referred for therapy that encourages compliance.
We're seeing a lot of small acts of resistance every single day, and we're seeing a quiet revolution happen within the society. And when people want human rights and freedom, there is nothing that can really stop them. And you're seeing a young generation leading this movement.
So long as hijab laws are in place, many Iranian women say they'll continue to defy them at any cost.
Brave women. Danielle Hamamjian there reporting. Thank you so much. Coming up, rehab looking a little bit different for some folks out west in San Quentin Prison. NBC's Kathy Park is going to tell us why they are incorporating pickleball into their daily routines at the prison. That story is coming up next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In prisons across the country, we often hear of rehabilitation programs to help prepare inmates for life outside of prison walls. As NBC's Kathy Park explains for us, one prison in California is taking a completely different approach to that with a little help from pickleball.
San Quentin State Prison built its reputation housing criminals considered the worst of the worst and once had the largest death row in the country. Convicted murderers, drug dealers, and rapists are still serving lengthy sentences.
I'm serving a 15 years to life sentence for murder robbery.
I'm in here for 20 years for 3 counts of attempted murder.
As the incarcerated attempt to make amends for their crimes, San Quentin is on a new path toward overhauling correctional culture, one whack at a time.
And we love the sport so much. We love it. That place in my heart. Yeah, everybody's getting so addicted to it.
Pickleball, the fastest growing sport in the U.S., is also breaking out in prisons.
Actually, my whole incarceration, I avoided sports because that's a potential point of conflict that could lead to an act of violence.
But pickleball appears to be a positive force with no drawbacks or division, bringing rival gang members, even the warden, together for an unlikely matchup.
I was not allowed to hang out with different races due to my gang history. So now I get a chance to break that barrier.
Do you see the inmates differently because of the game?
I try to see them as a human being.
Recent data show at least 95% of state prisoners will eventually be released and more than 65% rearrested. In California, officials have identified the importance of rehabilitation inside prisons to help break the cycle. That approach includes cultivating unique programs, from filmmaking to podcasting. And now accessible activities like pickleball are catching on.
Eventually, these guys are going to be your neighbor. Do you want us to lock them up for those 10 years and treat them poorly, and then one day let them out? And, you know, they were burglars and robbers and murderers and rapists when they came in. What are they going to do after 10 years of just being stuck in their cell?
Is pickleball the solution, you think?
I think it's a solution, yes, for sure. It's fun. Like I said, I love it. We all look at these guys.
Pickleball enthusiast and coach Roger Belair has been introducing the sport to prisoners since 2017.
And I understand it's going great down here. I'm glad to be back.
Expanding the game to 40 prisons across 11 states plus the nation's capital.
Here's a sport that you can learn after breakfast, and by lunchtime, you're pretty good. So community is what really separates this sport from others.
It's just about knowing that we're more than just one mistake. Through pickleball, we get to change the way people look at us. We get to humanize us.
Serving up second chances in the unlikeliest of places. Kathy Park, NBC News, San Quentin, California.
Well, finally tonight, the Vatican is as much a work of art as it is a religious center for the world's Catholic worshipers. Well, now through the power of AI, the experience of visiting the holy site and interacting with its paintings and sculptures has been totally transformed. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga has the full story.
St. Peter's Basilica is not only the spiritual heart of Christianity, it's also the biggest church in the world. It took 120 years to build it brick by brick. It now took only 2 years to create its digital replica, pixel by pixel. It's called the People's Basilica, a perfect 3D model of St. Peter's from the ground up. A technological miracle built by Iconem, a French company specialized in the digitalization of heritage sites, and Microsoft. From December, visitors will be able to explore the Basilica through interactive rooms. Those who can't travel to the Vatican will still be able to experience its history and architecture through the interactive website. Iconem took over 400,000 high-resolution images of St. Peter's Basilica from multiple angles. Then Microsoft processed them with its artificial intelligence to create a perfect digital twin accessible on-site and online.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
like windows into this temple of art and spirituality.
One of my favorite parts is when you come visit St. Peter's, you stand on the floor and you look up at that dome and you cannot actually see what's there because it's so far away. But using this technology, you literally, as if you're flying through the air, you look and you get there and you realize that is the face of God.
It's almost as if it allows you to get closer to God like that.
It does. And then the other thing that's remarkable that I wouldn't have ever imagined was then you can, with the images, then look down at the basilica as God sees it.
Among the first to watch the 3D basilica was, of course, Pope Francis. At a meeting with those involved in the project, the Pope warned about the dangers of artificial intelligence, but also said its correct use can be useful, and that products are good not only when they work, but primarily when they help us grow. The digital basilica will not only allow people and the Pope to admire it up close, it will also allow historians and restorers to preserve it.
That was the other aspect that we were able to do, to get all of these photographic images with such minute detail and to use an AI algorithm to identify where there are cracks, where there is missing tile, so that the people here can restore it. So I do think we've created something that will make this place special for generations to come as well.
The physical basilica was built and decorated by Renaissance artists like Michelangelo, Bernini, and Raphael. Almost 400 years after its completion, it had been turned into a masterpiece of digital art. Claudio Lavanga, NBC News, the Vatican.
Pretty incredible. Just don't tell Michelangelo that you can recreate the Sistine Chapel with AI. That is going to do it for us tonight. I'm Sam Brock. We will see you on Monday. Until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.